All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of the Michelle Gifford podcast. We are so excited to have a special guest. We have Sharon from Sharon Says So. Welcome. How are you?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, if you don't know Sharon, well, then you haven't been hanging around my Instagram very long. But Sharon is a proclaimed America's government teacher, right? We're
Mhm.
doing it. That's what she is. She's a marine wildlife enthusiast, right? I'm making this up, but she
Fair.
did actually
It's
send this over
fair.
to me.
I am. I'm an enthusiast.
Yep. She
Yep.
loves random facts. She's a photographer and business coach. Are you doing much photography right now?
No.
It's understandable
No.
because in the last 4 months, she's gone from, was it 14,000 followers on Instagram to
Hmm.
over when I looked today, it was 314,000. So I thought that was special.
Yes.
And Sharon and I, we were both photographers. I know her
Mhm.
from my Beauty Revive days when I was doing my nonprofit. And now she's just exploded. How are things going? How are you feeling?
It's going extremely well. And I am just, it's actually just it's kind of gratifying to see how many people really are interested in learning. Like any teacher is like, look at all these people who want to learn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It warms my teacher heart to see that people actually do want to learn. They do want to have more um, clarity. They do want to have more understanding. They do want to have more confidence in their knowledge about things like the Constitution. And I love it. I really do love it.
So let's talk about like what you're actually doing right now, right? Because right now she's talking about current events, she's talking about politics, she's tackling some hard things that none of us really want to tackle. So take us back to what it was in October, like when you were at 14,000 and then suddenly you're bursting. So like what happened and then what has
Mhm.
continued to happen?
So, anybody who's been on social media for a while knows that people just post random things that are not factual. And there's a lot of like, that is not real at all. Like I'm sure you've seen a little misinformation online, Michelle. Sure it's happened. So as a government teacher, I was looking at some of the stuff that I was seeing posted on my Facebook, posted on Instagram, and I was just kind of like, actually, guys, that is not how that works at all. That's like a very fundamental misunderstanding of how something like the Electoral College actually functions, or actually how third parties work in the US electoral system. So I just started posting some very, nonpartisan, informational, fact based videos about like, here's actually how this works. Not giving, like my analysis, not trying to give people what I think they should think, but just giving you the facts of how the Electoral College works so you can decide for yourself if you like it or not. You know what I mean? So it really started there, and since then has just exploded. And my intention with doing it was really just to try to limit the spread of the misinformation that I was seeing online. Kind of like, again, my teaching background, I'm not a fan of just like reposting lies. You know what
That's
I mean?
weird.
Like, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's not repost the lies. So yeah, I never set out with an intention to be like, let's talk about all the things that nobody wants to talk about, or that actually everybody wants to talk about, but they just want to give you their opinion on. I never really set out to do that, but I quickly discovered that there is a hunger for it. There's a hunger for, there's not a lot of places you can go online to find um, a space where both people who identify as conservative and who identify as liberal can feel safe. That I am not there to try to bash your deeply held beliefs. I mean, you know, unless of course it's a straight up lie, like you're lying about how the Electoral College works. But you know what I mean? Like if you are
Yeah.
somebody who is a Republican or a Democrat, there's no that you're welcome here. There is no, like, I'm not trying to convert you to believe in anything. It's purely just the idea is it's hard to make an educated opinion about something if you have no education on the topic. You know, like it's
Yeah.
hard for you to form an opinion, an educated opinion, if you're like, I actually know absolutely nothing about that. So that's the idea. It's not to get you to think like me. It's to give you information so you can form educated opinions on your own.
Well, I think it's obviously people are hungry for this, right? At the end of
Mhm.
2020, we were all like, what just happened? And
Yeah.
people like be like, I was talking to my sister about this and how we're like, people just want a safe place. And right now, there are very few safe places on the
Yes.
internet where you feel like you can say things that you're like, I actually just don't know. Like, it's not that I
Hmm.
am one way or the other, I just don't know. And so the way that you have done this and is through question boxes, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
How many question boxes, how many answers, how many questions do you get every day?
It is impossible to say because Instagram doesn't give you any tools to
That's
be
true.
like,
That's
there's a
true.
thousand questions waiting for you, but I would estimate it's close to or over 1,000 a day.
Oof.
And it's, yeah, there's obviously, I can't answer every single one, but I do try to look through and see, like, okay, what is on people's minds today? And a lot of times it's related to a current event where somebody maybe just doesn't have any background information on what's happening and they read a headline and they're like, can somebody do that? Or, like, why do we even have presidential pardons? Things along those lines where people just have a background question about a headline story and they don't understand how like, why do we have pardons? Can they pardon for everything? Can they pardon themselves? Can they pardon their children? Do they have to tell us about the pardons? Like, just things like that. So a lot of it is related to what's happening in the world. And then I also try to select questions that have a mixture of more detailed, in-depth topics and questions that are more simple, because not everybody is coming into this with the same amount of government background. Some people truly are like, could you refresh my memory what Congress is? And they know that I am not going to make fun of them for not knowing the answer to that. That is, if you legitimately are like, could you refresh my memory on what Congress is? Absolutely. I would love to do that for you. I don't, I think the fact that you are asking, you're here and you're asking is fantastic. I don't have any people ask me that all the time. Like, don't you get sick of the questions and people asking the same things over and over? I don't. I mean, like, if you have kids or you've been a teacher, that is like 90% of your job, answering the same questions over and over and over.
That's true.
And so it's not weird to me. And I don't dislike it. And I don't get annoyed when people ask me sometimes really hard questions, but also sometimes really basic questions. It's not annoying to me. So yes, the question box, I did not, okay, if you want the honest to goodness truth, when I started putting up question boxes in October, I really did envision a time when there would not be any more questions.
It's
When
not going to
people
happen.
were like, thank you, you've answered all my questions.
It's
I
not
really
true.
did.
It's not
No,
happening.
that has never happened. I really did think, like, yeah, I'll put it up for a few days until things, simmer down, cool down. People they understand. No, it only has, grown. But yeah, it's kind of like, do you remember in middle school when you had the, our changing bodies workshops and they had the anonymous
Yeah.
question box,
Yeah.
that's kind of what it is. Like,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily feel good about going to your Facebook page and saying, what is Congress? But you would, if you can ask it anonymously and not get made fun of for asking it, then you might feel safe doing that. So the fact that it's anonymous to the internet, nobody knows who asked that question, I think, adds to the popularity of it.
Yeah, and you have a way of doing that, right? You have created a safe place where you don't make fun of people.
Great.
My business people they ask me, like, because I will repeat um content, right? Like repeat
Yeah,
content. What do you say to the
absolutely.
business person who was like, well, I can't put that out because I talked about that 2 weeks ago. Is that true?
Yes. Oh, I love that question because as one of my friends says, who does like Instagram coaching, once is never. If you said it once, you might as well have never said it because first of all, you're operating on the assumption that number one, everybody's paying careful attention and taking notes to every single thing that you're saying and keeping track and like putting in a spreadsheet and like, she talked about that 2 weeks ago. How could she unfollow? You know what I mean? Like that's not a thing that anybody's doing at all. Secondly, um, not everybody's seeing your content. Of course, Instagram is pushing out content to only a select number of your viewers or listeners or readers. So that is, keeping people from seeing what you're saying. And thirdly, the key to human learning is repetition. What do you mean? Like that's how you master anything, is doing it over and over and over again. So even if somebody saw it the first time, they are not going to be offended by seeing it again. In fact, it'll just help hammer home the concepts for them. They'll be able to say, like, my friend Michelle says this all the time. You know what I mean?
Shut up about it.
Yeah, she keeps saying this. And in reality, it just helps solidify you that identity for your audience. She talks about the following things all the time, and it helps make you known and helps build your authority on those topics that you keep bringing up over and over. It can actually hurt your credibility if you always talk about new things and never repeat content, because you don't build that authority. I'm like, I actually know what I'm talking about on this topic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a really big thing to point out because our brands, like, like whatever your brand is, I say, when I'm talking about you, I say, hey, you need to go to her, because when the Capitol riots happened, I was like, I don't need to speak on this, like, because Sharon is doing it. That's what she
Mm-hmm.
does. And she's going to explain it in a good way, right? Where I feel like
Sure.
it's safe. And not that if you feel like you need to speak out, go ahead and speak out. But I think that
For sure.
like if we're not really taking stock on what we're doing, what content we're creating, and like the
Mm-hmm.
messaging we keep putting out, right? Branding is just it's about memorization, right? What are we going to be
Yeah,
known for? Can people say
ab-
that over again?
absolutely. And I have several concepts that I repeat over and over all the time on my page. I probably will repeat them indefinitely. I want people to remember them. I want you to memorize these phrases. I want you to know that misinformation is a threat to democracy. I want you to know that we cannot work for each other's mutual destruction. I want you to know facts don't require our approval. They exist outside of our political affiliations. Gravity does not care who you voted for. It is just a fact. You know what I mean? So I think that that concept is highly applicable to all business owners. You've got to be repeating the same concepts regularly over and over and over again. And I don't mean repeat them in the same way, the same time, the same boring thing over and over, but repeat the same concepts, because once is never. If you want to build authority on something, it needs to happen regularly. I mean, think about anybody who's an expert. Anybody who's an expert in, say, rocket science or whatever. Are they one day just doing, like, here's how to floss your teeth, and the next day, like, here's how to make a grilled cheese sandwich? Or are they talking day in and day out about concepts related to rocket science, engineering, astrophysics? They build authority on what they want to be known for. So, yeah, I think this idea of like, I must come up with original ideas each and every day of the year actually can be hurting your brand.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen it with yours, like, because those three quotes that you just said that you say all
Mhm.
the time, people now, you have graphics. People are making graphics, right? They're sending you things.
Yes.
But that, I think that that's a really good illustration of it, though. If you say something enough, then it's suddenly a movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because your
Right.
words are now a movement and people care enough about it to make artwork and to put it on
Right.
things, And I think that
Yeah.
like watching your evolution of how this has happened has been really like, it's like a fast forward business, right? Like
Yes.
like in 4 months it's like
Yes. Right. Exactly. Like it's like watching a video in times 5 speed, in some ways,
yeah, it's
like what is
crazy.
what? Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're the fastest legit growth on Instagram that I've ever seen. Because even right before the Capitol riots, I think you were under 100,000, right? And then
Probably.
I think that's true. I'm like watching you because I think you're amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's doing more. Yes, she's doing more. And but I just think that that is like a testament to your, like, just how wise you are with how you're doing things. Is that people, you're saying the same things over and over again. You're predictable, right? And then they can share about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you got thousands and thousands of shares like during that 2 weeks.
Yes.
And
Yep,
so
absolutely. And people, Mhm.
go ahead. You could go.
No, I was just going to say, people actually like knowing, like being able to predict what you might say on a topic. They like being able to know that you are a person that they can go to if they need to feel safe about a certain conversation they want to have, or they like knowing, who would be really good about talking about this is Michelle. You know what I mean? That's actually a great brand position, is to be so known for something that other people then associate you with that. Like, Michelle is great at this thing. And if you don't ever take the time to build your authority on that by repeating the same things over and over, you're never going to be that person for other people.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. And I have a question about your content, because I'm a big content person and I like the planning, but your content is very reactive and it has to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how do you balance that? Maybe like planning and time wise, and what are the benefits and the drawbacks of doing it that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the drawbacks are that it requires more time on the day of. It's harder. You can't batch your content. You can't just do all of your posts for the week or the month and call it good. So that's one of the big downsides, is you have to have a bigger daily commitment to doing it. And I understand that I'm in a unique position, and that most people are not going to be posting 50 Instagram stories a day. I get that. I'm not saying you need to. Um, but that's the downside. The upside is that you really do have your fingers on the pulse of what is happening in your industry. And you really you're able to respond in real time to exactly what people's thoughts and concerns are. And in some cases, it allows you to be that person that others can look to in, let's say, in a challenging time, in a not everybody works in a business where you would be turned to in a crisis, but when they need something, they know they can call on you. So it allows you to be that person for other people as well. So I'm not saying that my way of doing things is the correct way. It's just one way. Like, there's more than one way to be a good parent. There's more than one way to be a good teacher and whatnot. There's more than one way to be successful on social media. And this, because current events move so quickly, it doesn't make sense to plan current events content out a month in advance.
It doesn't. It sure
No,
doesn't.
no.
So because you've grown so fast, what have been some of the hard parts about that? Because I think it's everyone really would love to wake up and say, oh my gosh, this is taking off, right? Like, we put in all this effort and we hope that our message will take off. But like, what have been some of the things that you'd had to figure out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, in order to do it at the level that I'm working at right now, it really does require setting a lot of other things aside, and really putting a lot of my time, effort, and focus into doing this. And that is not always possible for other people. Like, when I was working more full time in photography, there's no way I would have been able to do this, because I was shooting 400 sessions a year, like, I had tons and tons and tons of clients. So I would not have had the opportunity to do something like this. So that's one of I understand that I recognize that's very much a challenge for people, and for me, is being willing to devote so much of your time to doing it. In my scenario, again, not saying everybody else needs to follow this blueprint. The other thing, of course, is that when you grow slowly and organically, you really are engaging the right people and repelling the wrong people. And you're continually refining your audience, and you you are cultivating this community, right? When you have a time of extremely rapid growth, you don't know who has slipped in the back door. You know what I mean? Like you have not, if you are gaining 100,000 followers a week, you don't have the same opportunity. You haven't had the same opportunity to cultivate that community and to say, like, here is what we do here. Here are the rules that we play by here. We don't send hate messages. We don't leave those kind of comments on posts. We don't spend time arguing here. You don't have the same opportunity to cultivate that culture surrounding your brand when you have a time of extremely rapid growth. And so then as a result of that, you are going to have some rogue actors. You are going to have some people who don't realize that this is not an account where you can post a bunch of Bitcoin information. Like this is not an account where you can just, have a bunch of name calling and get into arguments. So that's been personally challenging, especially because politics is such a it produces a lot of strong feelings in people. We're not talking about like quilting. We're not talking about, like knitting a sock.
You've also
Yeah,
done yarn.
not knitting a sock. Yes. It's something that people are very passionate about. And so there are a lot of big feelings. So that's one of the more challenging aspects is you kind of feel like, and now who are all of you? You know what I mean? Who are you? I don't know. I don't know about this. It's just a little bit of a feeling of not knowing who your audience currently is. And it takes a little bit of time to, again, develop that trust with them and vice versa.
So what are your tips to like catching your audience up? Because you do a really great job. Because listen, like we should talk about your stories because you do talk about deep politics and then you do share marine wildlife videos. And then who stole my broccoli casserole, which I can't get enough
Yes.
of. So, but someone listening to that was like, what just happened? Right. And I think like if someone like comes to your feed, your stories, because most of your content is in your stories,
Yeah.
then like how are you catching them up? I think you do a great job. I would love like very specific tips on how you do that.
I think some of it is making sure to hit all of the notes you want to play, hit all of those every day. So for
Mm,
me, it's always, okay, here's some headline stories. What's going on in the world? Like I'm going to give you like a 2-sentence summary. Here's what's happening today of the following 5 things. Um, the next thing is always going to be like, question box, what are you wondering about? And that's predictable that I will have one of those. People know to look for it. They say to me, I I have been saving this question for your question box. Here you go. You know what I mean? So they know to look for it. Then it's almost like the best way I can describe it is it's almost like a small intermission in
mhm.
between kind of more heavy topics. I have small intermissions of animal videos, which they just amuse me. There's no really logic behind it other than I truly just find it super amusing and interesting to see like mama whales and baby whales and like eagles and you know what I mean? Like it just amuses me. That's all it is. And people can tell when you're passionate about something. And I also really do think, Michelle, that people like associating you with something unique and interesting.
Mm.
They don't want you to be a robot. They want to be able to attach themselves to you in some way to make a connection. And so sometimes people will message me and be like, I love your politics, but really you're curating amazing whale content. You know what I mean? Like they just like to attach themselves to something they can identify with. And then the other thing that I do regularly is I love to just mix in little interesting facts and tidbits about a unique place in the world. Or, earlier today, I know this will air later, but earlier today we talked a little bit about Air Force One. And like this plane is actually super interesting. It has like an operating suite and a whole bedroom, and it's just interesting to see the inside of a place like Air Force One. We were talking recently too about the nuclear football which is a case that a military aide carries around that has all kinds of, secret information. They carry it around and they stand near the president whenever the president is away from the office. And it's literally
and the
the
biscuit,
biscuit.
right?
Yes, yes. And the president has a biscuit, which is like a laminated card that has unique codes on it that are used to authenticate his identity. So if he does call up, like a joint command center, they can authenticate that it's him and not somebody impersonating him. So yes, those are the kind of things that I find funny. Like, he has a biscuit and they use it on the football. And, like that kind of stuff just amuses me. So I like to intersperse little amusing other facts and tidbits about a variety of topics. So the point being, I try to do some of that every day, and that becomes predictable. And then if somebody is just not in the mood to talk about current events today, they can tap through and there will be something that is of interest to them. They will get to see some eagles staring at their egg super intently and randomly. They will get to see the inside of Air Force One. They will get to see some pictures of miniature reindeer. So it allows you to also connect with a broader audience if you have if you predictably have a little bit of variety in your content every day.
I love it. I love it. So when you are, if you were, because you're a business coach, I mean, you're not doing much right now. You're America's government teacher. You don't have time for that kind of stuff. But what would you say? Because a lot of your like business growth is definitely specific to time and topic, right? But there are some definite business principles in your growth. And what do you see as the things that you would pass on, like into someone you were business coaching? What would you say this is something that you could try or do a variation of or duplicate that you would find success on Instagram?
Sure. Well, I do think I want to go back to that idea of building authority. I think that's an important idea. I have been telling my coaching clients that not everything on Instagram needs to be weighty. In fact, sometimes it's kind of nice to have those little palate cleansers. It's kind of nice to be like, I love watching the sea lions. Sometimes it's nice to just chuckle. And it is not just okay, but it's almost welcome to be able to mix in some lighter content, especially in a heavy time like we're having right now. Like there's a lot of sociological studies that talk about how the movie industry is inherently far more successful during times of domestic upheaval. When we're in the middle of a war or a tough time, people go to the movies because they want to escape. And so right now, a lot of movie theaters are not open and people are on Instagram to escape. And so not everything can just be like heavy education 24/7. That's absolutely an important component, but don't shy away from mixing in lighthearted content as a way to reach a broader audience. One of the things that I'm sure anybody who's been studying Instagram will tell you that video content is extraordinarily important right now, that reels are important, that stories are important. And I think a lot of people struggle with knowing how to show up. They struggle with like, what am I supposed to even say? How do I even show up and do that? I don't want to show my face. I don't want to like, I'm not funny. What am I supposed to do? And I think it's important to just be yourself and to just be like, listen, I like weird islands you've never visited. You know what I mean? Like I like sea lions and I like eagles and I like random facts. And these are the things that you can reliably expect from me. And that helps cultivate your audience as well. It helps repel the wrong people who are like, no, this account has nothing I like. That's actually super valuable. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine. I'm not for everybody. And the second you try to be for everybody, the means your business is, I don't want to say doomed, but there's no way you can be for everybody. That's not even possible. So stop trying to be for everybody and realize that the right people will be attracted to you and the wrong people will leave. And that is what you want. You want the wrong people to leave. And by showing a little bit more of your personality, your own personal likes and dislikes, it allows you to attract and repel and refine your audience.
And at least, especially, I think watching you, people like are completely committed to you, right? Like you specifically, because you show up as you. I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
our people have that, like they feel really nervous about
Mm-hmm.
showing up as
Yes.
themselves because,
Yes.
and I do think that we don't need to show 100% of our lives.
No.
No,
Oh gosh, no.
no,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Mm-mm. No,
no.
there's definitely, I think it's a wise idea to think about like, what am I willing to talk about? And what am I not willing to talk about? And, like I have a friend who has issues with her, like she has grew up in an abusive home. Her family is not safe. And so she does not show pictures of her children because she knows that they stalk her page. That's her personal line in the sand of like, that's not safe for me. I'm not going to do that. Other people have absolutely adorable children and they're some of their most popular content. So everybody is going to have their own cast of characters. They're going to have their own topics that they love to talk about. And there are things that it's like too much information. I don't need to know that. That makes me uncomfortable that you're talking about this. You know what I mean? Unless your brand is built around those kind of topics. Like people don't actually want to know about the fight you had with your spouse. They don't
No.
actually want to know about the time your mom yelled too much when you were 11. You know what I mean? Like that's not helpful.
Yeah.
So I am a big proponent of being yourself, being your real authentic self, but staying in the boundaries of topics that are appropriate for your brand.
And so how do you do that? How do you navigate, like, first of all, how do you have the courage to just like put more of yourself out there? Because I actually think that there are few of businesses who, well, maybe that's not true, but not as many businesses are putting too much of themselves out there. I think there's more
Mm-hmm.
people who are like really nervous about putting themselves in there at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what do you say to someone who is scared about that?
Yeah. What's underneath that is a fear of being judged. It's a fear of rejection. That I put myself out there and you don't like me, that I'm going to feel those bad feelings of being judged and feel those bad feelings of being rejected. And so it's what's underneath that message is just fear. And it is kind of that fear of like who I am is not good enough because people will not like it. And I'm just going to tell you, you're not ever going to fully transcend that. You're not ever going to be completely immune. You're not ever going to be somebody who is like, absolutely nothing gets to me, because that person who absolutely nothing gets to them, that person lacks empathy. That person is kind of a psychopath. You know what I mean? Like they don't have any ability to connect on an emotional level. So there will be people who are going to say things that hurt your feelings. There will be people who that just will happen. I can promise you. But ultimately, the reward for doing so is so much greater than the risk. Overall, the vast majority of your audience that you have worked to cultivate are going to be so supportive, so kind. They're going to send you pictures of you sitting on top of the Capitol while orcas frolic in the foreground. They're going to, like take your words and put them on posters. The vast majority of your audience truly wants to be there for you and actually does feel connected and care. And that's who you have to serve. You have to focus on serving those people, because by choosing to hold yourself back, by choosing to not be your authentic self for fear of what somebody else is saying, you're serving no one. You're not serving the clients that want to be there for you. And you're not actually serving the people who are being critical of you. And you're not serving yourself. You're kind of stuck in this middle ground of like, I'm actually making nobody happy right now out of fear. And I can tell you firsthand that it is a much more gratifying and satisfying experience to make the vast majority of your audience happy and to have a few people be unhappy than to have nobody care about you one way or another. And that is I think a very common marketing problem that people have is actually nobody really cares about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not from a, like, who are you? What? I don't care.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot. It's hard to, like nobody cares about what I'm doing. And one of the ways, it's a phrase that I like to use, brand evangelism, that you want to build brand evangelists who are such raving fans about your business that they spread the word without you even having to ask them. They just can't wait to tell their friends. You have got to go to this store. You have got to eat at this restaurant, use this photographer, graphic designer, visit her page, whatever it is. You cannot build brand evangelists and you cannot build that kind of snowball word of mouth without putting yourself out there. It doesn't happen. You cannot build brand evangelism by just being like, hey guys, so just having a nice glass of OJ. Have a good day, guys. Like actually nobody cares. So that's nice. Have a great glass of orange juice. You have to have something that people can latch onto and attach to. That's how they become brand evangelists. It's a bitter pill for some people to swallow. It
Yeah.
is, where
Oh, for
they're
sure.
like, I don't want people to dislike me. I get it.
Yeah.
I really do. I get it.
It is hard. So with how do we get people to be evangelists for our brand? I mean, I think that you shared some, right? We have to share parts of ourselves that people can latch onto. Add value, I think, is one of
Mhm.
your huge things that you do. What
Yes.
other tips?
Yeah. Adding value is huge. And don't underestimate the value that humor brings to the table. That
Yes.
making people laugh, entertaining people, that is adding value. People think adding value just means like giving away free content. And that is a piece of the puzzle for sure. But don't, like some of the biggest movie blockbusters of all time, they're not movies that are like really, really deep and make you want to change the world. They're just like stuff got blown up and I laughed. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
that's like kind of a movie formula. There's some chase scenes and some cars leaping off of buildings. So don't underestimate, that humor is adding value. Um, but I also think in terms of building brand evangelism, if you're working in a one-on-one client setting, that the client experience has got to be at the top of your list. If you're working on that one-to-one level of, photography, graphic design, you're doing, providing services for money. That client experience, boy, that has got to be dialed in because there's a lot of people who can cut hair, but there's not a lot of people that can cut hair and then have your clients walk out the door and be like, I just love her so much. I love
Yeah.
this salon. I love spending time with her. Like it has to be more than the haircut. It has to be more than the pictures. Um, and if you are not working in a one-on-one client setting, if you're selling a product or something along those lines, you still have to keep that client journey, that customer journey in mind. How can I make this fantastic? And one of the ways that you make it fantastic is by providing them with something they can latch onto, something they can enjoy, something they can attach themselves to. I I have my own things. Everybody will have their own things. I don't think everybody needs to go start putting whales on their Instagram account. It's not appropriate for everybody. But it's if you are into like needlepoint or garden gnomes or Christmas cookies or like whatever that is, share that. Because here's the other thing too is there will be people who in a kind of funny way hate it and then it becomes a joke between you. Like I have a friend who truly is terrified of whales. And so now she mentions on her Instagram all the time. I, I've, well, if you want whale content, you won't find it here, but you can definitely go visit Sharon. You know what I mean? Like it's a joke
Yeah,
about
it's a
how
thing.
much she
Yeah.
hates the whales. Yes. So
It's a
just,
lot of
I think
inside jokes
having,
is what we're trying to, right? We're trying to
yes,
create those things where it's
yes,
like when I was talking about you coming on, I could tell the people who have listened to your content, they're
yeah.
like, where's she getting all that well content, right? Like,
Where
and
does it
people who are
come
like,
from?
and I think that then suddenly you're building a community who has these inside jokes and there's a connection
Mm-hmm.
point. And if anything, if we've learned anything
Yes.
in 2020 is we are craving a connection point, right? We
Yes.
just need to feel that
That's a great
personal
point.
connection. And your account does that really well. And um I think you use humor really well, right? And you don't take yourself too seriously, like you're,
Yeah.
which
I'm
is
very
lucky.
willing to laugh at myself. People don't like it. If you're willing to laugh at yourself, then other people can laugh along with you. Then they're not laughing at you behind your back. You know what
Let's
I
laugh
mean?
at us together. Totally.
Let's laugh at me together. Right. Like I will sometimes film myself laughing at myself because it's ridiculous. But I know that when I watch other people laugh, it makes me laugh. It's
Yeah.
hard. If I just showed you a video of a person laughing at themselves, it's hard for you to not laugh along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think being willing and able to turn on a camera during a moment that you again, keep it appropriate, but that maybe you would not think, my business really needs to see me laughing on my Instagram today. You actually might be surprised how much your business actually does need that. You might actually be
Yeah.
surprised at how quickly you can build brand evangelism by providing people with the opportunity to become attached to you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's very true. So, as you're building this brand, you're building a brand, you're building a business. How have you monetized this?
Mm-hmm. Well, my biggest way right now is with my workshop program, my government for grown-ups workshops, which am a couple months into now and have been super pleased with the response so far. I decided to do a little bit of an experiment. And I will tell you, because I know you have a lot of business people listening to your podcast, I'll tell you the results of one of the experiment thus far. I'm going to keep tweaking and experimenting with it. But I decided to, instead of just saying it costs this amount, I decided to make a suggested donation and say, here's the suggested donation. If you can't pay it, pay what you can. And if you can pay more and to help offset the people who can't pay and you want to, go ahead. So it took a little bit more, logistically to set that up from like, how do you allow people to pay at various price points? And again, I understand that this is not a thing that is going to work for all businesses. I get that. This is just maybe an idea to think about for maybe a special thing you might want to do in the future. So I will say that um, about 10% of people just willingly pay more than the suggested donation. They pay more, and they do that because maybe they enjoy the feelings of altruism. They enjoy feeling like I helped someone else out. I'm going to help somebody else attend this workshop that maybe couldn't afford it. It makes them feel good to do that, right? Some people paid 10 times the suggested donation amount just because I gave them the opportunity to do that. And then the number of people who paid less than the suggested donation was 1%. So 1% paid less and 10% paid more. And many people who paid more didn't just pay, 1% more or 5% more. Some people paid double. Some people paid 10 times more. So it's been a very interesting experiment to see. First of all, there might be room in your business, depending on your industry, to have one event, one product, one something that operates on this kind of a scale that allows more people to participate. If they can't afford the full price, pay what you can. And then it allows other people to offset that cost. And most of the time, that the people who are willing to pay more are far more than making up for the people who are not able to pay the full amount. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's been a very interesting experiment. And of course, again, this is, in process. But I also think it's just an interesting study in human behavior. It really is. It's an interesting study in human behavior. When you tell people it's a suggested donation, they are much more inclined to pay more. Where versus if I said, here is the ticket price, how many people are going to go out of their way to email to be like, could I please pay more than the ticket price? Do you know what I mean? That's not a thing.
That doesn't
That's not a thing. So there's something about, here's what I'm suggesting. If you want to pay more, you can. There's something about that psychologically that makes people feel good about paying more because they're paying more voluntarily than just paying what you tell them.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, because I've signed up for your government for grownups classes and I paid more because I was like, Sharon has given me so much value. I'm willing to pay more. And I think that's an interesting thing too. I think that a lot of people see the value that you provided, because I'm not the only one. I'm sure. But to just say, like, because it was $10, like we need to say how much it was. It wasn't like
$10.
very much. It was $10.
It's not like $1 million. No.
And so, but I think there is some aspect of the evangelism thing you're talking about, in the amount of value you're providing is massive. And so when it's like, oh, $10, what? I can pay more than that. Like, because of the value that you've added. And I think there's, that's an interesting study. I like it, but you're not,
it is
like, you're not, this isn't the first time you've like had some crazy amount. Well, let's just say you did $125,000 in a fundraiser in like a month, right?
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Yeah. Didn't see that coming. Didn't see that one coming.
That was crazy.
I really did. Yeah. At the beginning of December, I was getting ready to hit 50,000 followers. And one of my followers was like, you're almost at 50,000. Like, what are you going to do to celebrate? That's a big number. And it is a big number. Because before all this was happening, it took me like 9 years to get to like 14,000 followers. You know what I mean? Really, it really did. 9 years of showing up pretty consistently. So somebody suggested doing like a Venmo giveaway where, like, what if a bunch of people, if a bunch of us just sent you like 50 cents or $1 or whatever, and then you could find somebody worthy to give it away to. And to make a long story short, I opened up a nomination form, had so many people nominate, friends and family who were struggling, going through a hard time, and then just put up my Venmo and PayPal and Cash App, and people started donating. And then I started, as soon as the money came in and I was putting the money out, like I was donating the money to these people, I would anonymously, like I'd redact their personal details so people never felt like I was trying to, I really don't like it when people, like glorify the misfortune of others. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't like the idea of knocking on somebody who's going through a hard time's door and being like, shoving a camera in their face and being like, I hear you're having some misfortune. Let's film it. You know what I mean? I really dislike that. So I wanted it to still protect their privacy. So I redacted personal details, but then I would put up, here's who this money went to. This money went to this family whose house burned down, and they have 5 children, and their house burned down 2 weeks after their 5th child was born. And then I would put up like the family's response to getting the money. And I don't think I have cried that much literally in years. Literally, that's not an exaggeration. I was so moved by this entire experience. But then I think when people saw where the money was going, that it made them give more. It made them feel like, I gave $5 last time. Here's 10 more dollars. Like, this is amazing. Please keep doing this. And the fact that they could contribute a small amount, again, this is going back to, I think, some of this pricing psychology. They could contribute a small amount, send whatever you can, send 50 cents. It doesn't matter. And I'll aggregate it for the greater good. Your $5 actually will go to help somebody. And then the other thing that I think made it so successful is that they could see very clearly who their money was going to help. It was not just like going into some general operating fund. Not that there's anything wrong with charities or nonprofits getting money for their general operating fund, not at all. But it's a different psychological experience to send your Venmo balance and then to read the next day who this money is helping. Yes, it's very personal. And it's hard to hate people close up. And when you are seeing firsthand how money is impacting somebody, it moves you. So I think that was part of the reason it was that successful, was people really did see the difference that it was making, for many of these families.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. It was very powerful. And you went from thinking, what was your goal? It wasn't very much.
No, I was thinking
Your
like,
first goal.
yeah, I was like, I was in my mind thinking I would probably raise $1,000. That's what I was thinking. And I, in my mind was like, wouldn't it be amazing though, if we could raise $5,000? Like that was my like, whoa, that would be so cool. We could raise $5,000. And there was at one point where I was at, um, like they had donated 80 something $1,000, $87,000. And I was just on Instagram talking about it. And somebody was like, we need to get you to $100,000. Like this needs to happen. And overnight, people donated almost 50,000 more dollars, like overnight. It was so moving to me. I cannot even describe the experience without tearing up about it. Just um, seeing the way that people were willing to show up for each other, and also the trust that people had in me that I would do something good with this money. Like you're actually sending this money to a stranger on Instagram. You know what I mean? I also felt the weight of that, of like, these people are trusting me with their money. So anyway, I will absolutely repeat that. That will happen again. And this year we'll raise even more money, but
Yeah, we will.
it was very powerful.
Well, I think it goes
And
back to
also
like,
that
oh, go
was,
ahead.
no, I was going to say that is also, that experience right there was a catalyst of growth on my platform. That is something that people feel great about sharing. That is something that kind of stuff
Yeah.
gets reposted. Like if you want to watch Christmas miracles happening, go look at this account. Creating that kind of shared experience that people want to share with others, I think is useful. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And you just created, I think you created, well, it goes back to what we said. Like people kind of just want to be able to escape a little bit from 2020. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
it was really great to be like a part of the contribution, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
say, I am making a difference. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. Like 2020, there were parts of it that were horrible,
Absolutely.
but I can help someone else. And that changes you, right? When suddenly you're
Yes.
like, my house didn't burn down, but I can help someone who's did.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was, and I love that just from the beginning of like your growth, you are making giving back a huge part of your business,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it also is a touch point for people, right? Like some,
Yes. Yes. Yeah, people, again, it helps build that credibility. It helps build that, um, way that people can bond with you, that touch point that you were talking about. And my reason for doing it was never anything other than, wouldn't it be nice if we could do something like that for somebody else? That was my motivation behind it. Um, and so I wouldn't recommend that somebody go into doing something like that
right,
for it, for any kind of
the wrong reasons.
the
No.
wrong reason, like, oh, I'll grow my Insta following if I give away money. People can tell if your heart is in it or not. They can tell if you're being, you're doing it for personal gain. So I don't recommend that. But I do think the idea that we're all members of a community here, building that community sense of like, we as a community raised $125,000, and allowing the people who are in your audience to assume that identity of, we did this, that
Yes.
identity of, we raised $125,000, not Sharon raised it. Because I contributed to it, but most of it is not my money. You guys did this. We all did this.
Yeah.
I think giving people the opportunity to, um, to identify as a member of the community is very valuable in helping to build that brand evangelism as well.
That's so good. So I want to know for our last question, where is Sharon Says So? What are your goals? Where are you going in the future? Is there a podcast? Please bless there's a podcast.
Well, I think there will be a podcast. There will definitely
Yes.
be there will definitely be books. That is
Yes.
happening.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. That is the
That
best. Will more of your accent? Is there going to be more accent
oh,
or no?
you know it. Always. I can talk like this any old day. This is how I will read any audio books in the future. Hey guys, it's me, Sharon, coming back at you with chapter 4. Um, yeah, that again, that's another little idiosyncrasy of
Yeah.
mine of like, I have this, I know that I'm from Minnesota. I get it. I say my O's weird. I understand. And I can ramp it up when I want to. And it's just a little silly, funny thing that people can attach to, you know? So I definitely see the Government for Grownups brand growing over time. In addition to books, I also have some projects for kids that I want to work on. I have a lot of people asking for children's books,
Mm.
like preteen books, teenager books. How can, like, I want my kids to grow up knowing how this works. Like, what are some appropriate books that I could give them that are not um, hyper partisan? They're not just like going, that I feel like it's just going to provide them with facts. So that's a question that I get asked literally all day, every day. Like, what books do you recommend
Yes.
about this? And I'm like, actually, I just need to write them because I don't recommend. You know what I mean? Like, there's just not a lot out there, and people
Yeah.
have demonstrated that this is something that they really do want. They want their kids to grow up educated. They want their kids to grow up
Yeah.
empowered and confident in their knowledge of things like the Constitution, how the U.S. government works. So I have that is, there's my 5-year plan, Michelle.
Thank you.
Um,
That's what I want.
but yes, and also when COVID is over, there will definitely be, I mean, like, COVID's going to end, of course, but it not in the way we all think. It's not going
Yeah, I
to
know.
end in a cataclysmic, like, it's over.
I know.
Um, I will definitely do some public speaking. So
And
that will be a
maybe
thing as well.
some trips to the
Some
White House.
trips to the White House, to the Capitol, to all the places, to see the Supreme Court again. Yes, it will happen.
I'm so
Yes.
excited. I have loved watching you grow so fast. It's like the very
Thank
best.
you.
You're a breath of fresh air on Instagram, really.
Thank you.
It's exactly what we've needed. We've been shouting at each other for a long time, and it's really, we just need to understand, right? We need to come together and
Yep.
understand and have someone to tell the Texans that they can't secede. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
Sorry, guys, you actually can't secede. I know it's hard to hear, but it's not legal.
Your 8th grade teacher was not telling you the truth.
No, they were not. That was not facts.
Anyway, so if you are not following Sharon, go do it. You need her in your life. And Sharon, thank you for being so gracious and so great for spending an hour with
Yes.
us. We adore you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, you guys, we will see you next week.